What's that sound? No,
Good sound.
you
I've got
guys
a
hear that?
fan
It's like
on.
is it a fan? Vrrr sound?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got a fan on. Sorry, man. It's getting hot in here.
Dude, because you're on fire, bro. You're just on fire. Welcome to the VetVault Business and Leadership Series with veterinary practice owner and business coach, Dr. Shibly Mustafa. In this series, we'll explore ways to make veterinary practice sustainable and profitable. Shibly is an owner of a multi-practice group in Australia. He is actively growing his business and shares with us the same up-to-date lessons and no-excuse approach that inspires his own coaching clients. So we are so lucky to have his expertise.
If you did a little victory dance, and face it, most of us did, when it was announced that vets are essential during the early days of the COVID outbreak, then perhaps we should talk about how you value yourself and the services you offer. Shibly joins us again to talk about value, how to value yourself and your services, how most vets shoot themselves in the foot on a daily basis when it comes to demonstrating the value in what they do, and strategies to fix it. Listen carefully for the 2 words you should never use in front of your clients. Please enjoy Dr. Shibly.
Hey everyone, I hope everyone is safe and doing okay in this COVID pandemic. We've got Shibly back again, and we're going to talk a little bit about COVID and what we're doing, but also a little bit about, like how do we think about ourselves and how do we value ourselves. But first, let's start with COVID. Shibly, how are you going? General practice in Queensland. How are you tackling COVID?
Look, I think the situation's a lot better than it was a few weeks ago. I think there's a lot less panic. People are sort of settling into the new normal routines. Clients are adapting fairly well. They've all been, well, not all, but they're slowly being trained in what to expect, come to the vets, etc. And so it's starting to get back to a bit more normal, or the new normal, like I said. Certainly there are some restrictions where we've noticed a drop in revenue across the clinics because essentially people have had to make more room. What used to take 20 minutes and now taking half an hour. And so our sheer capacity, our ability to remain productive at that same capacity is reduced. And, there's been a bit of stress as well. I think, have you guys gone to 2 teams? I think Gerardo and Hubert, I'm not sure if you have both gone to 2 teams in your hospitals.
We have. We were actually really fortunate in my team, specifically the after hours team. We've got quite a few casuals, so lots of people working part-time or permanent part-time. So we actually have 3 teams, and we could carry that all right. So we're the same. Things are in Western Australia, same as in Queensland. We've got no or almost no new cases most days. We are starting to talk about, well, how are we going to reverse out of this situation? What's the decision? When do we relax things a bit? We're definitely a little bit less militant about staying at the building. We're maintaining that social distance, but they can come in to give us their details and then they go wait outside and those sort of things. So yeah, we're easing up a little bit.
For us, we had discussions at a director level around when do we start toning things back and allowing clients into the building and things. And my take is that we would be guided by the government and guided by what they do. But even then, like I was quite honest with the leadership teams that I'd be reluctant to make a change unless there was a consistent demonstration that the change made by the government resulted in positive outcomes. It's really hard to reverse a change.
So there was something around the whole COVID outbreak that received a lot of media, or at least social media attention. If you're on any of the veterinary social media groups, the memes popping up, and the whole question of, are we going to be an essential service? Which to me was always a non-question. Of course we're an essential service. I mean, what else are people going to do? But the fact that it was even a question, I think, put some, I wouldn't say uncertainty, but did it make us doubt ourselves as a profession? Are we really essential? Is what we do important? And then there was like a celebration when it was announced that yes, we are essential, and a lot of funny memes coming out of that. But it did make me wonder about our perception of ourselves, of our profession. Are we essential? Are we important? Do we have value in what we do? It's actually something I personally struggled with as a young vet. You know, especially coming from a third world country where pet ownership isn't such a normal thing, and certainly the high levels of care that we have in our first world countries is not always the norm. So I actually personally struggled with that for quite a while, to say, well, is what I'm doing even important? And we put all this energy and all this money into study and do it, and it's an incredibly involved thing. And at the end of the day, why? I struggled with that for a while. I don't know. Did you guys experience any of this? Did it make you think about our profession?
But Shibly's a guru at this stuff. Like he's the king of explaining out like the value that the veterinary profession brings. Like, just before I pipe into Shibly here, but Rob, our CEO, said, look, it's extremely unlikely that vets will be considered non-essential, because even in world wars, vets were not actually put up for conscription, in Australia at least. But yeah, Shibly, what's your take on this value discussion?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing. And I think, we've got to look at the overlying shadow in our industry. And I know it's kind of been spoken about so much over the last couple of years, and rightfully so. I don't want to make light of this really dark, gloomy situation, in that we have all of the mental health issues, the depression, the burnout, etc., happening in our industry. But what I found really interesting, certainly through a lot of the coaching that I've been doing with veterinary practice owners, but also mentoring of young new graduate vets, not necessarily young, sometimes they're mature age students, but the recent graduate vets, there's this resounding theme of lack of self-worth. It's just something that seems to be quite inherent in us as vets. And, I think certainly if you compare us to some of our colleagues in the medical profession, we certainly don't have the same kind of, how do I say this without saying the wrong thing? The ego is not there amongst vets. We don't drive around in BMWs. Whether we can afford it or not's another story. But, we tend not to drive around in, Mercedes or BMWs with personalized plates saying, number one vet or something to that effect, for everybody to see. And, in a way, that's a really good thing, because we're really humble and modest and kind people with a lot of empathy and compassion. But at the same time, it's probably also what puts us in this dark, gloomy situation of having really low self-worth as well. And I think it was really quite interesting to see this sort of jubilation and celebration around the fact that, yeah, we are essential. Because, hey, yeah, absolutely, I felt as well. There's no doubt. I'm
a real doctor, yay!
Yeah, as if we needed some form of sort of government validation that was the case. But yeah, I think really interesting to see that people celebrating that. And I went, wow, that's about bloody time. Why don't we celebrate this every day? Why don't we walk in the room going, yeah, I'm essential. You need me. I've arrived. Make way. Clear the path. Without sounding again too egotistical or pompous, but at the same time, we don't feel like the expert in the room. Too often we feel like the nobody in the room, and we kind of get kicked about by the client. And, we don't feel like our opinion matters. We have all this imposter syndrome and, all these other issues which stem really from low self-worth. And I think, going hand in hand with that is our financial position as veterinary professionals and as an industry, but that's a whole nother big topic, which we might get into. I don't know if there's time for that.
But share, Shibly. Okay, like the value of self-worth. Like I have in my mind, I suppose, my thoughts around value of self-worth. But okay, share your journey. Share your journey. Like, did you want to be a vet when you were a child or something? Did you how did you? What was your journey into vet school?
Mine was an interesting one. Kind of came in sideways. So I wasn't one of those kids who wanted to be a vet from the day they were born. I sometimes wish I was. I wish I had that clarity and one track mind, so just stay focused on that. But I was like, hey, what about this? What about that? My dad was actually a GP, so he was a human doctor. And I guess I was fascinated by that side of things, the body and, medicine and healing and all that sort of stuff. And he had a geriatric practice in Brisbane. And so, we'd go around and visit the old ditties. And those days things were a bit different. And so I'd tag along with him as this little kid, and I'd go on his house calls and carry his bag and, stuff like that. And, it was really common, actually. We'd come to a house and there'd be animals in the house. A lot of old people have these animals, have their pets, cat, dog, etc. I remember one of his patients had a goat. That was always fun visiting them. But ultimately, that was my sort of beginnings. And I kind of looked at the path of like, hey, I'd love to be like my dad. Let's be a doctor. But then I think, the appeal of, and I'm sorry, this isn't just all about me and my journey to being a vet, because, everyone's got these really cool stories. But ultimately, for me, it was the challenge. It was the challenge. I kind of looked at human medicine. I was like, yeah, that's cool, but there's only one species, stuff like that. And I was like, hey, let's do something a bit different. Let's do something a bit more hands-on and whatever. And but my journey, it went all over the place. And I think the sacrifice, and I know you guys have made massive sacrifices as well in your journey to becoming a vet, to becoming a qualified vet. And I think this is the problem, is we often forget that. We forget that when we're out there in the consult room giving an opinion, or, trying to read a slide and diagnose something, we kind of go, it only took me a couple of seconds. And you forget about all this long journey that you've had.
Totally.
Coming into vet school, and all the hours, the dedication, and the fact that you worked your butt off all the way through school to be the top student, to get into vet school, all of that stuff. And you guys are much smarter than me, so I'm sure you worked a lot harder than I did.
Coming from the business coaches who helps people actually have profitable veterinary practices. Hey, it's the smartest people. But I get what you're saying. Like you forget, as you said, like the slide, looking at the fecal float. I was only a couple of seconds. But how many fecal floats did you have to look at to finally just go, okay, I know what I'm looking at now? How many blood smears, blood smears even worse. How many blood smears did you have to look at before you finally realize that those cells are normal, those ones are abnormal? You totally undervalue the journey. You've undervalued the experience and the amount of stuff we've learned. Like imagine a specialist, okay? The years, getting through uni, okay? Getting good grades, then going into an internship, being a slave driver, and then going into a residency program, then publishing papers, then sitting in exams. Some of them come out the other end not quite the same and lost family, because separations because of the stress.
Yeah.
And then they come out the end going, I'll give you this discount. They've done the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah. So how does this manifest? So other than just feelings of self-worth and, maybe not feeling like you contribute to the world, and is there something is what I do worthwhile? How do you see this in a day-to-day practice as an employee or even as a business owner?
Well, I think we often turn around and we say society doesn't value us. They don't respect us. They don't value our services. They don't think we're worth it. They always question the bill, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to really question, why is it that way? Why is it that that's the public? And I know it's not everybody. I know there are some clients who absolutely worship us and they will do anything we ask. And those are our favorite clients. That's lovely, but I know that's not the majority. And especially, depending on what sort of socioeconomics you're working in, what sort of culture there is, there certainly can be this feeling of, vets are a rip-off, vets are this, vets are that, they charge way too much, et cetera, et cetera. But I think if we look deep down and you're going to say, well, how much value do we really offer? How much do we explain about what we offer? One of the things they talk about in business is making the unseen seen. How good are we at really showing people the value that we're offering them? And how often, even just through our language, do we actually discredit ourselves? We're like, oh, I'm just going to do a quick, FNA and it's just a spay, I hate the words juster. It's like the worst thing you could say, it's just to this, it's just to that.
And that quick word, I'm very guilty of that. Okay, I'll quickly do this. I'll just go quick. Yeah. You're right.
Oh, okay. If it's so quick, then why are you charging me $120 for it? It should be free, right?
Totally. And it's like, all right, I'm just going to do a fluorescein stain and the Schirmer tear test and just put some local anesthetic drops and I'm going to look under his eyelid just to make sure that his ulcer isn't from like KCS or from a foreign body or whatever it may be. It'd be, including consult for us, $400 something. Okay. But it's going to take about 20 minutes. Like that is kind of so wrong. It's like, you know what? It's going to take a while. How about, you go home and have a coffee and come back or something, like really like why rush yourself? Like when it just, I totally agree with what you're saying there. It's like, there's years of experience and there's so much value in those tests. And then they go, it's going to take 20 minutes. I can't see that kind of like 20 minutes, $400. Like I'm getting ripped off here.
I wonder if that approach isn't necessarily always from undervaluing it. It's also, we are so eager to please.
Let's get you out of it quick.
Yeah, we want to be. I'm like this. We do the social styles, me and Gerardo, and we what did we say? 70% of vets are amiables.
90%.
90% of vets are amiables, and I'm a textbook amiable. So I want the client to like me, and so I want to be quick. I know that you want to get home. You don't want to sit here, so let's do it quickly. So and you think in my head I'm going, well, the fact that I can do it fast and get you out of here, there's value in that, but I see what you're saying, that maybe the perception is like, that's not a big deal what you just did.
Not a big deal what you did. And also the language we use, quick, just like Shibly said there, or just take a quick x-ray, $400. It's like,
what?
That only took you like 10 minutes,
Yeah, and so sometimes we are, shooting ourselves in the foot by doing things so efficiently. And it's an interesting psychology that when you do admit an animal to hospital and you say, oh, we're going to have to keep your dog in a hospital bed, and you go, oh, it's the different terminology. They're in a hospital now. Suddenly hospital rates apply, right? There's hospital fees, there's beds, there's this, there's that, there's all sorts of things associated with it. But instead, what we do is, instead of taking our time and leisurely allowing ourselves to come up with an accurate diagnosis and perform x-rays with chemical restraint, et cetera, the way we're supposed to, what we're so busy doing, because we're trying so hard to please, is we're trying to pump them in and out in 5 minutes during the consult. Let's get them through. Let's take the x-rays and the FNA and interpret everything and dispense medication and do up an estimate and do all of this all within 15 minutes. And then we wonder why the hell we're so freaking tired and burnt out, etc. But who is causing that? Who made those rules? That's all us. We've imposed all of that on ourselves.
I am like, okay, maybe in emergency it's different. But for me, it's like, I know I can do a fluorescein stain, Schirmer tear test, and local anesthetic corneal check, and blah, 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 in like 15 minutes, right? I know the information that it tells me and the value that it brings, and I can explain that. But then I don't want to put the pressure on me and my team and so forth. So I'm like, hey, look, it's going to take us about 2 hours, because I don't want to rush it. And then it's going to upset the flow of the team at the back end who are trying to get ready for that desexing, trying to get, not going to do desexings, but trying to get ready for that surgery. Need to do that as x-rays. So, hey, look, how about you go have a coffee, come back 2 hours, and everything will be done, and I'll give you a call. And it's never a quick.
It's actually, having spent most of my working life as a GP vet, and in the last 6 years in emergency, I find in emergency it's much easier. And now that you say it, I recognize it does actually help, because it's often really busy. So the things that aren't dying get admitted, and we just say to the owners when we get around to it, we're really crazy busy. We will do this tonight, but it might be 3 a.m. We'll get around to it. And it does. I don't think I've ever put 2 and 2 together, but often those guys don't really have an issue with estimates you give them, because they go, well, that was 5 hours in hospital, and it was 3 a.m. and they still fixed my dog for me. Yeah, that's great value.
Blood results. Oh, we'll get some blood results in 20 minutes. How much is that? $400. The machines cost so much money. The consumers, like, there's value there, right? The information, whether it's normal is great. Holy shit, normal so much better than abnormal, okay, for the pet. But it's like, hey, blood results can take us about 2 hours. It's going to come out the back. I need to type up your notes. I need to structure the day. I need to make sure there's a nurse helping out, and then we have time. I need to go make sure that the nurses have time to collect the bloods.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And look, there's definitely, there should be a premium charge for doing things in-house and doing things with that level of convenience and speed. It's cheaper to send bloods off to the pathologist and wait 24 hours to get the results back than to, pump it out on your in-house machine. And you kind of go, well, why are we using our in-house machine again? Why do we even have this thing? And it's for that convenience. It's that, hey, I can put it through and within 15 minutes, I can know exactly where we're at and I can make an accurate diagnosis and change treatment plans, etc. But is that the value that gets communicated to the client? Do they feel that, hey, it is worth paying a premium for that level of convenience? One of the things that happens quite commonly, and we spoke about this thing of us feeling guilty about charging more for our time because it only took me a minute or two. The challenge with this, if we drew this out as a graph, as you get faster and faster and more efficient and more experienced, then you should be charging more because now you're a senior vet, now you're an expert, now you're a specialist. In fact, you're so bloody fast, it's to your own detriment that you feel you have to charge less and less and less. So you've got a new grad fumbling around in a cesarean or an X-lap taking 2 hours and charging, whatever, double the amount that a really experienced critical care vet goes in, smashes out, does a splenectomy, et cetera, is in and out of there within an hour. And then they can't justify charging more, and so this is something we've got to look at in our practices as well is, are we charging per hour or are we charging for the result? We should be charging for the result, not for the time it's taken us to achieve that, because then we're doomed to fail. We're doomed to keep, killing ourselves and having to do more and more and more work for less and less and less money, which makes absolutely no sense at all.
But I've got one more level to add there. Charging for the result, right? How about charging for a normal result? Charging for a negative, right? We do tests to confirm a diagnosis, like in veterinary medicine, but in human medicine, they do tests to screen. They do tests to kind of check out to make sure. Let's rule out, right? Like any normal test for me, I always communicate this all the time. Okay, we're going to do some blood results. We're going to do some blood tests. Start with there. Look, honestly, the best thing here is your pet has normal blood results. It might make it a bit confusing because we don't know, but ultimately, do we really want your dog to have kidney failure or your cat to have kidney failure? No. Okay, so normal, I would love to call you later with normal results because I would love to do that. Okay. As opposed to, we've got normal results. I'm sorry. We don't know, where do we go from next? Well, that was a waste of money because everything was normal. So, I prime it. And, this is not a sales strategy. This is actually just reality. We get so much information from normal negative results that is just as valuable as positive and diagnostic things that we do as well. And it comes down to the way you frame it. And most of my conversations, almost all my conversations are when I call an owner later, hey, look, I've got some blood results back. And the good news is it's all clear. They're like, oh, thank God. That was money well spent. And it was.
But even that, let's say, how do you communicate a normal result? When you've got a sheet of, 10, 20 different parameters on a blood result, yes, and they're all normal.
Yeah.
How many of us just kind of gloss over them and go, yeah, all normal. Look at this, wonderful, normal.
Kidneys are okay.
Bang. Okay, there's your $400 just gone, right? Yeah. You as a client, where do I get the value out of that $400? Whereas if you showed me, okay, hey, blood glucose is normal, that's fantastic. Your dog's not a diabetic. This is normal. These here, they're all the kidney parameters, et cetera, et cetera. Let's spend that extra 3 minutes just making the unseen seen. Letting them feel like they know where their money went. It's just like the mechanic, the motor mechanic that has, you went to work, leaving your car at the mechanic's, thinking you were just in for a quick service. You were going to pay, $150, $200. And then they got the car on the hoist. They gave you the phone call and said, whoa, we need to change this, and this. And it's going to cost you, $1,000. And you're kind of freaking out, but it's all trust, right? You've got to trust that mechanic and go, look, you're there. The car's up on the hoist. What can I do? Just go ahead and do it. And this is exactly the situation that our clients are in. We ring them midway through a dental procedure or midway through an anesthetic and we say, look, I've got to make a decision on this, I've got to do this, so that's going to cost you a bit extra. We're going to be in there longer. What do you want to do? And they're like over the barrel, or under the pump, and they've got to just make a decision. And, that's fine. And a lot of them do that, and they trust us, and they go, hey, you're the vet, you do what you need to do, and I'll trust you. But do we then stuff it all up at the end? It's not the procedure that's so important. It's the end discharge, right? Like, you can go do this amazing X-flap, you've saved the dog's life, but if your skin sutures are crooked and crummy, they're going to think you're a crap surgeon and they're going to complain about it, right? Or if you've got like a crooked clip on the dog's coat, they'll think, oh, geez, what did I pay $3,000-$4,000 for? They couldn't even clip my dog with this neat square. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. That's the end that the clients receive, and that's what they're passing judgment on. Those little things on that end. And so, I think we have to be mindful of this and go, how do we communicate that value at the end, at the time of discharge? I know we're in a rush. I know we feel like we've done our magic in the surgery room. Who cares about the 1-minute discharge? Just get the dog out of here. Let's move on, right? We're not even getting paid for that bit. I got paid for what was there. We've got to rethink this, okay? The client is paying you for what they can see and what they hear. And just like the mechanic, when you go fetch your car at the end of the day, if he can deliver you a box with all the spare parts and show you and say, look, these are your disc pads. See how they're worn down here? This is why we had to replace them. See this old tire here where the thread was, worn? That's why we swapped out these tires. Unless we explain that. And the cool thing now, and let's bring it back to COVID and where we're at now. The cool thing is we're starting to use more video. We're starting to use photos. We're starting to give them some evidence to show what it is that we're treating, what it is that we saw down the microscope. We're starting to make that unseen seen, which is really cool, because for the first time for a lot of us, we're actually starting to deliver the value that we should have been delivering all these years. And the clients can see that and appreciate it. And I think we're in a really cool, unique situation where, and I really don't feel it's that much of a client perception change as to, geez, are vets really essential and do I really need them? I think they've always identified that, yes, vets are essential and I need them. Of course, there's the few people who think you only need a groomer and the neighbor over the backyard fence. They're the ones that you need to give you your advice.
Don't forget the breeder. Breeder.
Oh yeah, the breeder. They were first on the list. They were first on the list. But there are a lot of people that go, look, hey, you need a vet. Vets are essential. So the only thing that's really changed now, and I think we should really be aware of it and kind of bottle it, is that we as vets, as a veterinary community, are starting to feel, yes, I'm essential. Yes, I'm necessary. Yes, I'm an expert. You need me. This is my opinion. And the cool thing about the way we're communicating now as well is it's not so much, hey, let's have a banter. I'll give you 15 options and you tell me which one you like and we'll talk about it for half an hour and you let me know and then you call your brother-in-law and get his opinion. It's not like that anymore. It's a bit like, it's a little bit more one way, right? It's like, it's a one-way valve. Okay, I'm getting the history from you, one way, give me your history. And then I'm going to do my thing and then I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to go one way, communication to you and say, this is what I found. This is what we need to do. Here's a treatment plan. Bang. And clients just go, yeah, let's do it. There's no back and forth. Let me talk about it and chew on it for half an hour and ask my mother-in-law what she thinks. There's none of that. And we should just sort of bottle that and, keep these systems and go, great, guys, the system's working. How do we get that to work beyond COVID? Because this is really cool.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I almost think that my final thought was that we kind of, okay, so the brain is wired to never experience a bad experience again. So it dwells on the negatives. It dwells on the client that says, oh, that's expensive. Oh, that's, well, you guys are ripping me off, driving away in your Audis or something like that. And then I have one. It's because I have like 4 different businesses. Okay, spent 20 years developing, and I don't feel bad about it.
You don't need to justify, man. Don't feel bad.
But I think the key point is that we can't expect a client to value us. You know, we can't ask them to be compassionate to us. We can't ask them. It's this uncommunicated expectation that we have of clients to be rational, whatever it is, nice. Like, think of your own time when, like, you were a customer, and then, I don't know, the fruit man delivered something wrong. And you're like, holy shit, I needed those strawberries tonight for my souffle, and you gave me blueberries or something, right? Or, you know, like, I went to the shop and you came back and you had 2 broken eggs. Oh, I'm going to call up Woolworths and going to, you know, rip them a new one because of my 2 broken eggs, right? We've all been unreasonable, right? Mm-hmm. And I just think the mindset that some of us hold, which is that our clients should elevate us into godlike position and should, you know, respect us and be compassionate towards us, is unrealistic. And the sooner you let go of that, the sooner you start to embrace things like, I value myself, I value my own time, I'm going to develop strategies which help me actually connect better with clients. I'm going to develop strategies which help me bounce back after a shift. I'm going to develop strategies which help me actually just be a better, higher performing veterinary professional, so that I don't have to have that unrealistic expectation that a client, you know, is going to treat me like as if, I don't know, I'm some kind of veterinary god.
On that same topic, and Shibly, you're talking about that we have to demonstrate that value. I've been mulling over for a while, how do you respond to, even just internally, that accusation of all you care about is just the money. I've heard lots of students ask that, and what do you say when you hear that? And to me, it's not so much what you say, but it's what it does to you internally. So I've actually written a blog about that. But half of it, I wouldn't say I've changed my mind, but I've added something to it. The crux of the blog was that when somebody says that to me at 2-3 in the morning, a part of me goes, shit, yes, it's about the money. I'm here at 3 in the morning. I love animals, but right now I'm here for the money. So it's not just about the money, but it's also about the money, yes. But what I've added to it recently is more what you're talking about, Shibly, is you've got to stop for a second and think, is there some truth in that, or at least is there a reason why the client perceives that? And it comes back to what you're saying. If I'm not demonstrating that value, if that client's saying all you care about is the money, is it possible that that's genuinely what they think because of the way I'm selling it? Maybe it looks to them like I just care about the money. What am I forgetting? What am I not saying? What am I non-verbally communicating to them that makes them think that I just care about the money? They're wrong. Of course I know they're wrong. But maybe it's my own fault that they think that, and I should have done a better job of setting it up for them.
Well, you didn't say you're wrong. You said they're partially correct, right? Because we all need to live, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the accusation of all I care about,
okay.
Bullshit. I don't know a vet who doesn't care about their patients. But if the client perceives that you don't, then you're probably doing something wrong with your communication. But you'll have clients say that just as a weapon. They're assholes and they're angry and they want to make you feel bad, and they use it because they know it's an effective little jab because they know you're going to get a reaction. But for the most, sometimes you need to stop and think about, what's the truth in that accusation.
I think there's a lot of pressure that's put on to the vet to communicate all that value. Yes, I agree. We've got to, show them what we're looking at under the microscope, explain the normal blood results, put in a little bit of a story. Don't say, oh, well, they'll come in for a dental. We're going to do a dental. It's going to cost you $2,500. It's like, hey, talk them through it. What's the journey? They're going to come in fasted. We're going to do this. We're going to do a health check. Then we're going to take a little blood sample. We're going to shave this patch on the neck, et cetera, et cetera. And this is why we're doing. And you can spend an extra 2 minutes communicating that. And that's really important. But I think we have to realize that nearly all of our businesses, it's more like a relay race than a marathon with one vet doing or a sprint, and we kind of go, right, vet, you've got a sprint. Here you go. This client is completely cold, has no idea that the dog even has dental disease. They're just here for their vaccine. And within the next 10 minutes, you have to convince them that they've got a life-threatening disease and they need to come and spend $2,000 in your clinic tomorrow. And we're like, ready, set, go. and it's like a sprint. And honestly, that's how it sometimes feels in our consult room. And you get to the end and you're like, oh man, I lost that race, man. That poor dog. I wasn't able to sell the dental, and now that dog's going to wait another year till it comes round, and it's going to have to lose more freaking teeth by next year by the time I see them. But what we've got to realize is, what are all the different touch points in your clinic? That client's on a journey. There's the welcome crew, and so with a lot of what I teach, it's about the baton passing and treating it like a relay race. Okay, what's happening on the phone call when they first ring the clinic? How do they feel then? Who planted a seed? What about the next step when they're in the waiting room? What about, the way that they get greeted or the way that they're received? Okay, then there's the consult room, but then there's the waiting room again afterwards. And then how do we explain the bill? Do we just go, hey, that's $2,000, thank you? Is that, card or cash? Or are we actually explaining what's in that bill? And I think we've got to really look at this and go, okay, it's not just about the vet communicating value. It's the whole veterinary clinic. It's the whole system. We've got to put a lot more effort into our marketing message and the way that we communicate that value, right from the person who opens the door all the way through to the person that walks them back to the car. Or if you're not doing that, then there's a hint there. That's how you can, we can get it communicate a bit more value if we make it a bit more of a personable service. And so I think once we start as vets to realize, yes, we're vets, yes, we're essential, yes, we're these clinical gurus who do amazing things, and we resuscitate things that are dying and bleeding out, and 2 hours later they're perked up in their cages with their tails wagging. We've got to accept, yes, we do that, but we're also really, really crap at this whole business value proposition communication thing. And we've got to master that as well. And just because you're an ace surgeon and you can do, a splenectomy in under half an hour or whatever you can do, Gerardo, I don't care. What we've got to realize is, yeah, we can do that amazing stuff, but the clients don't care. The clients don't care. They care about how your junior kennel hand made them feel when they walked in the waiting room and they looked at them kind of funny, or the way that the receptionist ignored them when they walked in with their dog and they didn't even turn their head to acknowledge they were there. That's a big part of our clinic that we, unfortunately, when we're so stuck in our consult room or in our surgery room, we're unaware of these little things which are tripping us up. We're unaware of the relay, the first three runners in the relay race and how they've completely dropped the baton and fumbled and they've left us way far behind. And then we try to get into the fourth leg and we think we can sprint it home and somehow win this race. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
I've got something to add to that. And I think from a slightly different perspective, because to be honest, in emergency, I'm not saying, Shibly, you don't see this. And actually, to be honest, maybe I did see a lot more in general practice than I did when I was in emergency, and now that I'm in emergency. But the whole, whoa, that's expensive. Whoa, oh my God. Whoa, how much is that again? Sorry, can you say that was that $200 or $2,000? It's you know what, and one thing that I've stopped doing, which I think has really helped me out, is stopped kind of reacting to it and acknowledging it. Yeah, it's $2,000. Okay, I appreciate it's a lot of money, but the reason why we have to do this is the value. Acknowledge, accept, don't and appreciate. Sometimes, even if the bill's $10,000 because the patient's in liver failure and needs supportive therapy for a whole entire week with plasma transfusions and all sorts of things, it's look, that is a car. Okay, you're going to be spending a small car on your pet, but this is what we need to do. It's not well, what do you expect? It's not coming. It's coming from the world of actually, yep, you're right. It's $2,000, and yep, it's $10,000, or yep, it's whatever. And it's kind of just going, yep, that's a lot of money. I get it. But coming back to the truth, and it's just it's not fighting. It's not fighting the things. It's more like acknowledging and then coming back to the truths. And the truths are, look, your pet has bad dental disease and needs some teeth removed, and it's going to be $2,000. But oh my God, that's so expensive. It's I get that it comes with the anesthetics, this, but this is what we need to do. Your pet has bad dental disease, which has risks associated with infection and stuff. It's going to be $2,000. Just bam, back, bam, back, bam, back. And sooner or later, they'll go, okay, well, you know what? This is the situation I'm in. I'm going to decide, do it or not do it. Don't take it on as a personal thing. It's like, I don't know, maybe I'm so objective that I sleep well at night because I don't, listen to this stuff in my head over and over time again. I don't ruminate on it. I don't add meaning to these conversations.
Yeah, that's a gift. It takes a bit of practice to get to that point. Because you're right. When you start out, those are the sort of things that you're at home for 3 hours and you're lying in bed going, stupid client.
Why do we need to think about it? Why do we don't need to fight it? It's that's just what it is. It's reality. Things cost that much. Okay. So why are we fighting it? Your mechanic doesn't go, well, it's half that, I'm so, just say, look, I'm sorry. It's like that. This is what it is. Don't fight it.
Yeah. Shibly, I want to go back to the stuff you talked about you can't be the hero and the atlas who carries the entire practice on your back as the vet. It is a team effort. How do you achieve that? Because it absolutely needs to be, but as a practice owner or even just as a veterinarian, we'll have non-owner vets hopefully listening to this. How do you get that system running smoothly and get it in place?
Yeah, that's a lifelong process there, but probably too much to go into. We'd need a whole nother episode, I reckon.
Okay.
To deal with that. But ultimately, it's a series of systems, and we have to start realizing that, like I said, we're running clinical surgeries and practices, but we are very much running a business. You have customers; they pay you money for a service. You are in business, and until we start to realize that, we won't run it as a business. And when you look at some of the best businesses in the world, and I hate to use this analogy, but I'm going to use it because I don't want it to devalue us, but McDonald's, okay? The reason why they can have such cheap labor, okay, such young staff members, and they can still achieve the same standard. I'm not saying their standard's high, but I'm saying it's consistent. It's consistent. Every time you go there, you're going to get the same thing in that same time frame, etc. And the reason they can do that is because they have extraordinary systems. And there's a great book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth, and he talks about having extraordinary systems so that, and don't let your team hear this, but so that you can have ordinary people in your business. Okay. And look, I think unfortunately we're relying on having extraordinary people all the time. We're relying on our vets and our receptionists and everybody to just be these extraordinary people who just they're like, Duracell bunnies that just keep going and going and constantly smiling and pleasant and warm, and who have no home life, who have no families, and they have no ups and downs and, financial burdens, and they must just, show up. And look, I'm not saying that that's not an important part of being in business. You have to absolutely be that way. Otherwise, you're not delivering the service, but at the same time, 95% of it is systems. And we have to build those systems in. You look at the great companies of the world, it's not by chance that people smile at the reception or that they have a really friendly concierge who comes and has a small talk when they collect someone's luggage. Like, that stuff has all been scripted. That's systemized. That's part of their business systems. And that's why those companies are so successful. And so, yeah, it's absolutely a topic for another episode, but we do need to start looking at what are our systems and how can we create extraordinary systems so that we can still deal with sometimes our team members not being in an extraordinary state of mind, where they are just showing up to work kind of ordinary because they've worked a 12-hour shift, or, they're exhausted and they're relying on good systems to carry them through.
Well, it's not just because they're ordinary or extraordinary, right? It's because in a team, you'll have inexperienced and experienced, right? In every team, you'll have someone who's new, someone who's learning. The systems and processes need to be clear and support those people. So I think you're 100% correct there, Shibly. But I think ordinary is okay. But I think it's almost like inexperienced, new. The systems need to support that, and experienced, they need to be able to leverage experience. So, this is the best ever.
I can't hear you, Hubert.
Best ever that Hubert
it out, man.
Oh, that's the best. Oh my god! I'm gonna capture that video and share it. And Hubert looks like a goldfish in a bowl. Pop, 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 and I was like, oh.
Hey, should we wrap it up there? I like that we already have our next episode lined up. We're going to talk about systems. I really like what you said there, Shibly, about it's the system that's failing, because I've often seen that in practices. I've worked in many practices, and somebody does something that's not ideal, and the boss is angry, and they've got to be in trouble, and I've always thought it's not that person's fault. It's your fault as the boss, because you failed.
Absolutely.
I feel the same way. If I get a complaint about one of my stuff, I'm embarrassed, because I'm like, I fucked up.
It's me. It's my fault.
I stuffed it up. I should have prevented that from happening.
There's some awesome stuff we can go into there about leadership and training protocols, but also just blame culture. And stepping up as a leader and owning that shit and going, hey, you know what? That's me. Maybe it's my team, but it's just like in the Apprentice, when someone stuffs up, it's like it's always that person who gets called into the boardroom. It's that person plus the manager plus the team leader, because they're always responsible. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up, boys. Thank you so much. That was very valuable, Shibly. I love it. Always good.
Cool, man. Good.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us. Remember, if you enjoyed that or found value in that, to go tell a few of your friends and get them to listen to the Vet Vault. We'll see you again next time.